Hi, my name is Christina Bennett, and this is my mini project presentation 2 on data collection for qualitative methods KIN 717. I'd like to start with a recap of the project proposal. USTA's flagship program for adult recreational tennis participation is called USTA League. It's team-based play. We have people from ages 18 all the way to 90. Each team is led or captained by a volunteer to the extent of 1,500 captains in New England alone. And the average number of team by each captain is 4 per year. So this study was started to determine the current experience of USTA New England captains of these tennis teams. As a staff member, we need to determine what that experience is, where we can improve it, and where we can make it easier for all of the captains and their players. So I wanted to give you an idea of some fun experiences by the adult teams and just show you a few pictures here of teams that are together, having a good time on the tennis court, supporting each other in clubs and outdoors, goofing off, really goofing off. And then the number of people that gather at these championships to come together to play tennis and support each other. They like to wear the same kind of clothes to support their teammates. There's lots of high fives. These guys, they also like to name their teams. They're from the state of Maine. They're all 65 and over, and they're called the Mainly Old Guys. And we play all night. So I wanted to give you an idea of what has changed from the original presentation. We use the data from the championship surveys, but captaining is more than just championships. The majority of the time spent in this volunteer role is during local play. So we switched the data gathering source to IdeaNote for more data that's not specific to championships, but more to the captain experience. Due to time constraints, we decided to go with interviews only. We didn't use any focus groups, but for those interviews, we also decided to use somebody who refused to captain. We felt that was really important, as well as talking to the people who do captain. So the survey, because it was started before this class, did have some demographics and a bit of quantitative information. So we had 364 total responses, 68% were women. The average NTRP level was 3.5. That just means an average adult player. Nobody's going to the Olympics, but not a beginner. And the percentage of those 364, 72% were returning captains, meaning they were not first time. We did an average scale of 1 to 5, a lot about communication, virtual captains meetings. And if you look at the numbers, everything was pretty good, except the recognition. But the qualitative piece that consistently came out through this was that communication needed to be more consistent, needed to be quicker, needed to be simpler, and that would kind of help captains do their jobs. So using this, we started to continue to evolve our interview questions. So I wanted to give you an idea of what IdeaNote was. This is the main page. I'm not trying to sell it here. We've just started using the platform at the section to curate new ideas and bring in an innovative culture. But as I used it, I realized it would be really helpful to get qualitative data and gather it and organize it. So this is a copy of the main page, and each one is a mission. The specific mission then inside has these kind of notes where people can add their information. So now we started our observations. This is an example of what I used to kind of collect my notes and my thoughts as I was doing the observation. I found it helpful to keep track of some of the main areas that I was looking into, such as the captain talking to the team, the captain talking to staff, interacting with players or observing their team or other players, how many times they did it, and just keeping some notes down at the bottom. I did find it a little bit difficult in any ways to make the observations without attributing emotional characteristics to those observations. For example, when one captain was talking loudly and leaning towards staff and gesturing, I wrote that the captain was angry. It took me a while to write up just what I saw and not what I thought the actions meant. After I did the observations, I did some more specific notes on the time, the dates, and just some areas that I thought were of interest that weren't on my main note-taking page, and this is an example of one of those. So for the questions, they keep evolving as we've discussed with staff, we've discussed with captains, and I've discussed with other classmates on how they should be structured and feedback from our original pieces. So we do start with warm-up questions, and then the main questions start with descriptive answers to kind of continue to get our captains and non-captains to be a little more open and a little more comfortable with the process. And then we move into a value-based questions to really get into the nitty-gritty of what we would like to know. So for the interview questions, we did use feedback from previous assignments, as well as discussing the questions with colleagues in the industry to ensure that they were pertinent to this study and also proper for the captains. So the interview questions for the specific captains were 1, 2, and 3 were a little more descriptive, and then 4 gets into a little bit more value-based and pushing towards some of the real true reasons that people captain and will volunteer in their community, whether it's captaining for sports teams or doing other kind of volunteer work. Now, the one piece that we changed for the interview questions from the first study to this one is we're going to interview a non-captain, somebody who refuses to captain. Why do they not want to? They play on a lot of teams, but they won't lead one. So these were some of the questions that we had for them, and 1 and 2 are descriptive, with 3 and 4 leaning a little more towards values as well. Due to scheduling conflicts and a few illnesses, we were unable to do the interviews this week as scheduled. They've all been rescheduled for next week, and we will get those done soon. So I feel like this particular study has sort of morphed into 2 distinct parts. One is why, what are the motivations, what are the influential factors for volunteers in the adult recreational tennis program? And second, how can we make a captain's job easier? And in a way, the 2 questions seem to be unrelated, or maybe each one is big enough to be its own study. After my interviews next week, I'll have a better idea of the connection between the 2, and I'll let that information drive the remainder of the study and all of the directions. So with that, here are my references. And get out there and play some tennis, everybody. It's a great sport.